Hello guys, in the last lecture we forgot to mention the reading users input from command line using Ruby. So I would like to do that also. And again, it's pretty easy to get users input using in command line Ruby. So what we can do is to comment this part out from the function and use the gets. So what I can do is output user what is your name, the question, and then I can actually store again using get and ask another question, and then get. Finally, I can print out puts name and then append your age is and append age. Let's try this and see what happens. I want to make sure you guys can see what I'm typing here. Ruby and test RB, your name Orchun, your age 39. Orchun, your age is 39. Alright, so it's fairly simple again to read user's input, and you see that I'm using get, and I'm not saying get first argument, second argument, and so on. So it's going in a waterfall method, waterfall way. So ask the question, whatever the user's typing is assigned to that dynamic variable. Second question, whatever his user answers assigned to the variable that is defined in the code. And then you can, since you store them into variables in the memory somewhere, you can refer to them by using their identifiers. All right, so now we can move on to Node. I'm going to clear the screen and test if our node is available. I'm going to type node and see. I'm not referring to Node.js. I'm referring to node. They're pretty much the same thing. If I do Node.js, it knows what that is. So I'm going to use Node.js from now on. Okay, now I want to read something, read a text file, or read a user's input from the command line using Node.js. Now we're still not using a web framework, so we're going to use regular Node.js, command line Node.js to do operations. So in order to do that, I'm going to do Node.js touch. You're going to say my node.js, and that file is created. Now we can start playing with Node. Now that we have Node version is ready, our Node.js file is ready, and you can take a look at the FSO documentation. I've given you some of the examples that what you can do with Node classes and how you set up classes and so on. If you remember this page, I'm giving you simple classes, and it's going to be helpful for your assignment. What I want to do is I want to show you a couple more things that are necessary to complete your assignment, and also show you guys how easy also it is in Node.js to deal with user input and output and file input and file write operations. So let's start with the file operations first before I get into the user's input, because we're going to write little lengthy code, little more than 3-4 lines, as you see in examples. And I'm going to show you how your assignment needs to look like for all 3 languages. So all 3 languages, the output should be the same. The idea is, again, for you to be able to convert from language to language and see the similarities and be aware of the syntax differences. All right, so the file I was working on was my Node.js. So I'm going to open up that file in my editor here. Let me bring that over here to this window. And while I have that, I'm going to set up my other screen to guide me through the lecture here. All right, so again, I want to start with the writing a file. Now, if you remember, with Python, we did file write, and also with Ruby, we did, again, file write. It's very much the same thing in Node.js. However, we have to watch out for synchronous and asynchronous calls in JavaScript. So synchronous, basically the next line of the code is stop until the first line of the code is, or previous line of the code is, execution is finished. That's a blocking or synchronous way. Asynchronous, we're going to talk about these again. We have a lecture for that. Asynchronous is whether or not the previous line is finished, whichever finishes first, any of the lines, it's executed. All right. So again, we have a lecture about this later on, so I'm not going to talk about it much right now. But with JavaScript, with Node.js, we have to actually tell our system that we need the file system access using the Node.js library. So the library we need is fs, file system. So once we have this library available to us, we can use it in our code. So now I can do fs read file, and then I can define a data, and I can output the contents of the file. So in this case, data is unknown, right? Yeah, let's call this data for now. And then we're going to talk about the encoding of the contents of the file. UTF-8 is the base, the encoding level that we want. Then a function. Error is the first parameter that we will get if there is an error. Otherwise, we're going to read the contents. Okay, so it's a function. We need our curly brackets over here. And then I want to just output console log contents. All right, so now you're going to tell me, hey, where is the file in here? Well, file is the data that we define, right? So if I save this and then execute, and let's see what happens, right? Node, and we're going to do my Node.js right here. And you'll see that we have nothing that is returning from this call. All right, and if we do console log dot error, and you see that will be still the same. And you see, here we go, nothing found, no directory file or such. Basically, I cannot find anything named under node data. So we're going to change this to file name that we have. So you remember we were using a text file, second text file, or myfile.txt. Let's try this myfile.txt first. So I'm going to change that data to that and go back over here. Clean the screen first, and then my Node.js, and you will see that new line, and you'll see there's a null that's coming from error. Let's get rid of this error right here. Go back to our code, and you'll see that line by line it's outputting. Again, it's fairly simple to read a file with Node.js as long as you have the file system. All right, well, how do we rewrite the file? Well, obviously it's the same thing. We're going to still use the file system. Instead of read file, it's going to be write file. Let's call this my node file text, and then we're going to have to give data to it. In this case, we can either create a variable over here with a string. I'm just going to do a test string here, and UTF-8 we're going to keep, UTF-8 encoding we're going to keep, and also the function error content. We don't need the content, we're just going to track the error if there's an error. Console log done. Now you might see in some of the other online tutorials, this might be referred to as a callback. So that means you have to create a function outside, then call the same name from here, basically your callback function, meaning that you have to define our callback function, and then you will change this to callback here this way. And you won't need the curly brace in this case, but I'm going to keep it the way it is, so it's a little more obvious what's happening in here in this case. All right, so I'm going to save this file and go back to my code, execute null and done. Null is for the error because there's no error. Done is telling me that everything is completed. I'm just going to do a list, and you see that my node file is there, and we can just take a look at the contents of that text file, and see that test string is appended to that file. Okay, now we're going to continue with using the new library, readline. We already So file system. Now we're going to use the read line to capture user's input. I'm going to create a constant read line variable in here and require that library. And I'm going to create another constant here for a shorthand version of things and append read line. Create interface to create that functionality, give that node an option, and use the C libraries to be able to capture users, whatever user is typing in the command line. So we're going to attach create interface method, and this interface method will expect two parameters, input parameters and output parameters. So we'll call input process that is running, which is our Node.js application. std input, this is a C way of doing things, process.std out. Alright, so now we have these ready. Now we can use the RL variable to capture user's input. Now readline, if you look at the documentation, uses and also asks the question. So for example, what is your name? And the first parameter will be the question. Of course, the second parameter will be the function or callback. And if you want to write this in a JavaScript way, it will say whatever user types, store it into a variable called name, and then execute the next statement. In this case, we can console log the name. Or if you are expecting more information from a user, or you want user to type more information, they can attach another one. Click RL question. Again, next question will be what is your favorite color? And again, you're gonna bind that with the next parameter. Let's call this color. And again, go ahead and output the information if you want to. Now we can output both of them, right? We can do console.log, and one will be name. And again, the next one will be color. Now we also have to terminate that RL read line, otherwise it's going to keep waiting on the command line terminal window. So we're going to have to do one of these. Alright, now I want to run the demo of the assignment that you guys are asked. I'm going to use Node.js to do the demo. However, you are asked to do the same functionality with those three languages we have covered: Ruby, Python, and Node. So all the output should be the same, and I want you language that we have gone over. I want you guys to use the libraries, capture the user's input. I want you guys to be able to pass those arguments between methods and classes and create the same functionality, same output from the all three languages. Alright, so I'm going to run Node.js my Node.js file, and it's going to ask me my student name. I am evaluating the assignment for. Assignment name, assignment 1, and grade for the student is 90, and depending on the grade, it should give me the grade letter B for 90, and it's basically showing me Origin at Full Sail EDU. Here's your grade for assignment number 1 is B. Grade details looks like you are missing some of the functionality. Well, let's test the for an A. So I'm going to run this again. For the mic, assignment name, assignment 1, grade is 91. This time you'll see that it's getting an A. And let's do for a lower grade. And for Charles, assignment 1, and grade is 55. You'll see that Charles EDU is your grade, assignment is C. It looks like you're missing most of the functionality. So depending on the grade, it's also giving me you are missing most of the functionality, you are missing some of the functionality, or you have all the functionality necessary to complete the assignment. Anyways, basically it's creating cards that can be used to grade assignment, and you can get more detail and change these things to a little more advanced grader. But again, this is just a practice between classes, users inputs and outputs for 3 languages, and hopefully you guys can find this useful. and I'll see you guys on the next lecture.